Now I'm recording it, and let me just see if I can make myself go live on Facebook. That will be very nice if I can do that. Preparing live stream preview. Now, is it going to just do this endless like circle, circle, circle thing? No. Live from the Aquarian Minyan Yeshiva on Chodesh Iyar. Okay, I'm doing it. Wait a second. Okay, I think it's happening. Okay, Tov. Yay. All right, we're live. We're live on Facebook and we're live on recording. And I want to welcome everybody here and say thank you so much for being with me today. I'm going to mute everybody who's not already muted, and I just would ask that you would keep yourself muted until it's time for questions so that I don't get completely distracted, because I want to be able to be very present with you during this really special time. So today is Rosh Chodesh Iyar 5780, Tafshin Pei. Those are the Rosh HaTevot. Well, they're not the Rosh HaTevot. They're the Hebrew letter symbols for letters equaling 5780. That's the year in our calendar that we're at, that we're in right now. So Iyar, the new month of Iyar, that's what we're here to talk about. And I'm going to share my screen with you in a minute, but I just want to say that I started off, I was telling some of you this before the rest of you joined. I started off the day at the bat mitzvah of Razel Mangal Friedman, who's the daughter of Nell and Chaim, who are the owners of Afikomen, which is the Judaica store here in Berkeley, and she had a bat mitzvah on Zoom. And it was the most beautiful way to welcome Rosh Chodesh Iyar, because she's such a Taurus. She is such an Iyar girl. She's so beautiful and graceful and intelligent, and she's filled with all these Venus-like qualities. And the whole time I was watching her and we were doing Hallel, and she read from the Torah and gave her over a beautiful Devar Torah, I was thinking that it was just such a perfect preparation to talk about this really, really special month. So I feel ready, and I hope that you're all ready too. So I am going to share my screen so you can see my thing here. Okay. So this is some insights, some Kabbalistic and astrological insights into Chodesh Iyar by me, Lorelai, and hopefully you all know who I am, and if not, you should. Okay, so I'm not going to go through the whole Megillah as I did last month when I was talking about Chodesh Nissan, about proving the point that there is such a thing as an astrological tradition in Jewish tradition, just by saying that the basic question that got me into this in the first place, in terms of understanding the Jewish tradition and the Jewish esoteric tradition behind astrology and the history of it that runs concurrent to our culture from antiquity up until the present day, is that there's a prohibition against consulting astrologers in the Shulchan Aruch. It says one must not inquire of the astrologers or consult lots. As in Purim, lots. There's that right there. And then there's this. This is a picture of the mosaic zodiac floor of the synagogue near Tiberias. That was from the 3rd century, and it's just one of many, many, many astrological motifs that are featured in art and artifacts, household items, architecture, ritual objects, everything from antiquity into the present day that shows that astrology was a completely normative and unremarkable, ubiquitous part of Jewish cultural life and identity. So as to how this happened, how it became this and that. That's a whole other Megillah, and I wrote a whole thesis about it. But let's just assume I'm right and that it has been and it is, because there's just endless evidence for that. Just really briefly, there's just so much ephemera that exists from antiquity up until the present day that show in glorious, beautiful examples of art and architecture, zodiac themes, synagogue floors, walls, ceilings, sacred objects like Torah crowns, household items like calendars, and swaddling bands that were made into Torah covers that were embroidered with the signs of the zodiac that the children were born under. This is a beautiful picture of a painted synagogue in Poland, which many people have been to. So, speaking of the zodiac, in Bamidbar, in Numbers chapter 2, it talks about God's instruction to Moses and Aaron about how the 12 tribes should camp around the Mishkan. For 42 times over the 40-year period that the children of Israel made camp, their camping order, they camped around the Mishkan, the center. The Mishkan is the portable tabernacle that they carried around with them for 40 years. They always camped in the exact same configuration, okay? So that configuration matches exactly the zodiac, the 12 signs of the zodiac and the 12 tribes, the 12 signs. It's the principle of as above, so below. So there's a reflective quality. The tribes in their encampment reflect the stars, and the stars above reflect the tribes in their encampment below. And in that way, it's sort of the spiritual architecture behind the energetic archetypes that exist throughout the Jewish year and the Jewish calendar. So right now, Rosh Chodesh, it's the first day of Mazal Shor, Taurus the bull, the month of Iyar. That is the emblem of the month of Iyar. This is Taurus the bull. It's a detail from a silver Taurus shield, which is, of course, a beautiful piece of silver hammered out and adorned that protects the Sefer Torah in the Aron HaKodesh, the Holy Ark, from the Ukraine. It was made sometime in the late 19th or earliest 20th century, already way so far into the age of reason. It's practically out of the age of reason and into the age of anti-reason that comes afterwards, that we're in right now. Post-reason, actually. I'm just kidding about anti-reason, sort of. So this is a very modern example of the use of a zodiac motif in an Orthodox shul in the late 19th, early 20th century. And here is a little picture of Taurus. Taurus is often depicted as laughing, by the way, or smiling, from a ceiling painting from the same area, basically Poland, the Ukraine, from 1630. And this is the very famous synagogue floor art of Taurus this is from Hamath in northern Israel, that's the 3rd century. And this is from Beit Alpha, that's the 4th century, also in northern Israel. So Issachar is the tribe that is associated with Chodesh Iyar. And this is a picture of Issachar as a donkey, pulling, of course, a stack of Sforim, of sacred books, because this depiction of Issachar is one of the variations on the themes of what I like to say is that they frumified, or they made like ultra-Orthodox, the traditional. They took some of the blessings and they skewed them. So instead of Taurus the bull, it's Issachar the donkey pulling the yoke of Torah behind him. He's a scholar. It's one of the Jewish archetypes of Chodesh Iyar. So the symbolism of the month is taken from several sources, but Issachar as a donkey was from Jacob's blessing from the book of Genesis. A strong donkey lying down between two burdens. He saw that the rest was good and that the land was pleasant. He bowed his shoulder to bear a burden and became a band of servants. So this kind of really speaks to sort of the placid nature of Taurus as an archetype and as a characteristic of people who have strong placements, sun, moon, a strong planetary placement in the sign of Taurus. Of course, everybody has all 12 signs in their zodiac, in their own personal natal chart. They have all 12 signs because every natal chart has 12 houses. Each 12 of the 12 houses is ruled by a zodiac sign, but I'm talking about whether or not there doesn't necessarily have to be a planet in every single house. That's not how planets are distributed. So Issachar, he was Jacob's 9th son who he had with Leah in exchange for the dudaim, which are the mandrake roots, fertility root, that would aid her fertility, that were gathered actually by Reuven. Rachel traded one of her nights with Jacob to Leah, and on that night, Issachar was conceived. So there is a sense about Issachar that he was actually the supernatural firstborn. Like he came along in a way that was not, it was a deal. It was a deal that was done. And it's so funny because also Naphtali, that we hadn't talked about him yet, but Naphtali, sacred schemes, that was Rachel's pet name, or what she thought of Naphtali, who was the son of her handmaiden, and that she made sacred schemes to get yet another child for this like race. You know, the Torah kind of like, well, not necessarily even the Torah, but the Torah commentators like to make much ado about this sort of race and rivalry between Rachel and Leah about who can have more sons and dominate and populate the prophecy that everybody seemed to be very aware of, that Jacob would have 12 sons, and those sons would become the 12 tribes of Israel. Okay, so in Taurus, which is of course the month of Iyar, corresponds to the neck of the cosmic body. Last month when we were learning about Nissan and Aries, we learned that the head itself belongs to Nissan, Rosh Chodesh. It's the Rosh of the year, right? So what connects the head to the body is the neck. The neck is to the body what Iyar is to the year, to the cycle of sacred time that is the Jewish year. It connects the head, which is Nissan, to the rest of the so-called body of the year. So it connects the head, which is Aries and Nissan, to the rest of the body. And Iyar's Hebrew letter is the Vav, which is the connector letter, right? And this, of course, is an example of what scholars like to call medical melothesia. It's called a zodiac man. It's the only known representation of a Jewish zodiac man, and we know that he is Jewish because of his Brit Milah, featured prominently there. And let's not forget the sign of Scorpio, which is opposite of Taurus and Iyar in the Jewish year. And there is, of course, all of those very many associations with the opposites, as is true with all the signs that we will see shortly. Okay, so every one of the 12 months of the Jewish year gets one of the 12 different permutations of the 4-letter sacred, ineffable, unpronounceable name of God. One of the favorite names, the Yud and the Hey and the Vav and the Hey, can be arranged and rearranged into 12 different permutations. So last month was Chodesh Nissan, and it starts off what we would call the normal way, Yud and the Hey and the Vav and the Hey. Now we're in Chodesh Iyar. It's the Yud, Hey, Hey, Vav. Yud, Hey, Hey, Vav. So that is the permutation of the divine name as it appears in Chodesh Iyar. And it's interesting that the upper Hey and the lower Hey, the Hey of Bina and the Hey of Malchut, the Hey of the upper mother and the lower mother, are there together in Chodesh Iyar. Iyar is, of course, the bull, the letter Vav. The ruling attribute by the Zohar is the power of thought. Iyar is also called a Ziv, which means brightness Due to the increased power of the sun that makes itself evident during this month, the Babylonian name Iyar is related to the word or, which means light, of course, in Hebrew. The Zohar says that Vav symbolizes truth, and this is attributed to Rab Zadok HaKohen, in his work Pre-Zadok. Okay, he says, through one's dedication to truth, one achieves deliverance from the dominance of negative thoughts. So the Vav of Chodesh Iyar is supposed to connect, like the neck, right? So there's a connectivity that is required during this period of time, and there's a really good reason, which we'll find out very soon. Taurus is an earth sign. It's the fixed earth sign. We know that there are 3 different modalities that the 12 signs inhabit. What is a modality? It's like what modal, right? It's a motion. Okay. Cardinal, which initiates things, starts things. Fixed, which establishes things, and mutable, which changes and transforms things. So Taurus is the fixed earth sign, and earth is manifestation. So Taurus is establishing manifestation, okay? That's what fixed earth is, establishing manifestation. And that makes perfect sense if you understand the nature of Taurus. Iyar is the only month of the Jewish year that is completely incepted or bracketed by a mitzvah, which is, of course, Sfirat HaOmer, which began in Nissan and ends in Sivan. So starting in Nissan, ending in Sivan, in between is the entire period of time that is Chodesh Iyar, and every single day in Chodesh Iyar is the mitzvah of doing Sfirat HaOmer. The secret of thought belongs to Issachar. It's a spiritual gift. He was given the knowledge and the understandings of times. He has the spiritual gift of discerning the times and was in charge of the calendar and the setting of Rosh Chodesh and regulating the months through the secret of intercalcation, okay, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Taurus, the bull, is an archetype that is not only, of course, and obviously, but still needs to be said, does not exclusively whatsoever belong to the Jewish historical tradition. It's the Canaanite god of fertility. It's the Minotaur. I can never say that right. Minotaur, I think, of Greece, which carried Europe on its back. It's the Mithras, the Mithratic cult. Mithras is the cult that worships the bull. And there's another story in Buddhism also about the taming of the bull. Sometimes in art, it's only depicted, like in this example, the front of the body is depicted, and this might go back all the way to the Epic of Gilgamesh and the killing of the bull of heaven by Enkidu. I'm quite sure I'm not saying that correctly, so forgive me for that. During the story of the Epic of Gilgamesh, this guy kills the bull of heaven and throws the thigh at Ishtar. So this is a star tale. This is all being enacted in the heavens. So this is how it's depicted in the Leiden Arata, which the stars form the front part of the bull's body. You can't really see a good picture of the stars here, but they're like on the horns, etc. Okay, and in our tradition, the Midrash, Pesikta Rabbatai, links Taurus to the image of Abraham. Then God wanted to destroy the temple in the second month, but the merit of Abraham stood forward, as it is said, and Abraham ran and fetched a young bull. I attribute this page greatly to Iris Fischhoff, a great scholar and curator at the University of Hebrew University in Jerusalem. Written in the Stars, a wonderful book. Okay, so Issachar. Issachar's flag in the midbar, he had the sun and the moon on it, of course, because he had the understanding of times. Issachar, Taurus, ruled by Venus. Venus is called Noga in Hebrew. It's the ruling planet of Taurus and Chodesh Iyar. The Hebrew word, again, for Venus is Noga, which basically means luster, so really shining. And Venus also rules Libra. Venus rules two signs, Taurus, the fixed earth sign, and Libra, the cardinal air sign, which are the months of Iyar and Tishrei, okay? So Issachar has what is called Sod. Sod is secret, the secret to discerning the times. And it's very interesting that Venus, the Venus Noga gives you a hint. Of course, this is just classic, wonderfully fun, but you know, you can kind of do this to anything. I'll just say, just as a disclaimer, but when you add the value of each of the Hebrew letters to each of the letters for Noga, Nun becomes Samech, Gimel becomes Daled, Hey becomes Vav, and so you get Sod. So Noga and Sod, secret. That was the secret knowledge given to Issachar to determine the times, and it was a result of serving God through fear and awe. And Yireh, awe, has the same letters as Iyar, as you can see here. The Talmud talks about people who are born under Venus. In Shabbat 156a, they say, they, meaning of course the rabbis of the Talmud, say, he who is born under Venus will be wealthy and unchaste. That means promiscuous, immoral. What is the reason? Because fire was created therein. Now, interesting, right? That is a big hint about wealth and pleasure, the two things that are very, very much associated with the zodiac sign of Taurus and the planet Venus and Chodesh Iyar. The glyph of Taurus is a circle with a semicircle above it. You see here, it looks just like a bull's head, right? That is the glyph, or the astrological shorthand for the zodiac sign of Taurus. The imaging of a nurturing mother cow, as well as the symbol of the life-giving Mother Earth. That's what the symbol of Taurus is supposed to make you think of. It is, as I said before, fixed earth, which is establishing manifestation, ruled by Venus. Taurus is exalted. There's like in astrology, there's different positions, exalted, detriment, or the fall. Now, the Taurus is exalted in the moon. So if somebody has a moon in Taurus, it's said to be exalted. This is astrological language, like well-placed. Detriment, Mars, Pluto, meaning that if Mars or Pluto are in Taurus, that means they're in its detriment, meaning it doesn't have, it has more of a propensity to go towards limitations or the negative side of the characteristics. And the fall of is the planet Uranus, which is only recently a recent discovery, 1730, right? So it wasn't a classical planet. Uranus, right now, the planet Uranus is currently transiting Taurus. Uranus is in Taurus right now, today, and has been for a short time since it left Aries. It's transiting Taurus for the first time since the last time, which was late March 1935 through mid-May 1942. I think we all remember that period of time as one of great upheaval, global instability, and monetary fluctuations, to name just a few extremely weird and unpleasant things that happened abruptly and seemingly out of nowhere during the last time Uranus was in Taurus. And of course, Uranus right now is making a very hard aspect to the current situation going on with Saturn and Pluto, which we'll talk about later. As we talked about earlier, the physical correlations with Taurus is the neck, the nape, some say the shoulders, some say the mouth, throat, esophagus. It's this entire area, right? The lower part of the neck goes up into the jaw, right? The archetype of Taurus is like the farmer, the pastoral maiden, the earth mother. The shadow side of Taurus is bullheaded, stubborn, or lazy person. Taurus people, they shepherd, protect, preserve what is valuable and time-tested, familiar and comfortable, comforting. They have a lot of love and loyalty to everything that's familiar, nurturing. They're patient with things that are growing. They're stubborn. They are so patient they can literally outwait everybody else to get what they want. They stand on solid ground and defends the self against unwanted surprises and unnerving risk-taking, especially in matters having to do with money, which is why Taurus is so messed up right now with Uranus going through it, because Uranus is nothing if not crazy surprises and lots of risk-taking. Okay, so the enjoyment of pleasures is also very Taurus because it's ruled by Venus in her fixed earth manifestation. Taurus makes her into a grateful, thankful connoisseur of all things pleasurable. Practical, down-to-earth, decisive, persevering, pragmatic, faithful, sociable, reliable. Those are Taurus archetypes. Beauty, grace, charm, kindness, contentment, equanimity, serenity. Status quo, that's Taurus. Balance, that's Libra. That's the Venus aspect of the archetype, right? So what manifests as loving the status quo in Taurus turns out to be a need and a love for balance, Libra. Libra isn't attached to the status quo, but it's just the flip side. Balance is the flip side of that, right? Calmness of spirit, contemplative, pleasurable, all of that stuff. Slow and steady wins the race. Everything having to do with the arts, because art, music, dance, painting. Taurus, let's not forget, can also be fierce, focused, single-minded, and dangerous when provoked, just like a bull. Venus is not only nice and sweet, but vengeful when her love is unappreciated. Here's the classical goddess of Venus, Venus on the half shell. Very, very famous painting by Botticelli from the mid-1480s, probably. This is like Venus sprung from the half shell, emerged from the foam, fully formed and beautiful and ready to, basically take over the world with her beauty. So Venus is the planet. Iyar is the month. Iyar is connected to healing. The B'nai Issachar on Chodesh Iyar teaches that any weakness that a person has comes from the fact that the food they're eating isn't really fitted for them. Of course, Tauruses love to eat. Taurus and Cancer are the two I've got to eat something signs, okay? Iyar is the month when the manna began to fall. The food from heaven brought perfect balance to everybody who ate it. It was lechem habirim. It healed any part of the body that was ill. So the nature of Iyar itself desires balance and healing. So Iyar, also called Chodesh Ziv, the brilliant shining light. The sages tell us the Torah was only given to those who ate the manna. And Iyar in that way is a preparation to be able to receive the Torah next month in Chodesh Sivan. And the Vav of Iyar connects to the Zion of Sivan, because Sivan's letter is Zion. So Vav Zion is Ziv, right? Chodesh Ziv, this little wonderful little roundabout there. The Aleph Yud Yud Resh of Iyar corresponds to Avraham, Yitzhak, Yaakov, Rachel. There are the four legs of the Merkavah. It's also Ani Hashem Rofecha. I am the Lord, your healer. In the month of Iyar, the Be'ir, the well, Miriam's well, was given to Israel. So both the manna and the well, the water of the well and the manna that was this bread from heaven that could be anything to anybody that they desired, were given during Iyar. These are very Iyar, very Taurus kind of Venus ideas of wealth. I mean, what do you call wealth in the desert? It's water and food, if nothing else, right? Given for free, generously from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So we are being prepared to receive something much greater than ourselves that will make us into our true selves. We're building a mishkan in our heart during Iyar via the Sfirat HaOmer practice, and we are preparing to receive the Torah in Chodesh Sivan by working on ourselves via Sfirat HaOmer during the month of Iyar. Okay, so Rosh Chodesh Iyar always has 2 days. Today is day 1. Tomorrow, Shabbat, is Rosh Chodesh Iyar Shabbat, Shabbos, Rosh Chodesh, Gaval. I really love Shabbos, Rosh Chodesh. I like, well, who knows, maybe we'll have to take out more than one Torah on Zoom tomorrow at the Aquarian Minyan. We'll see, right? So we count the Omer. We start counting Sfirat HaOmer the second night of Pesach, which is always the 16th of Nissan, which is always Chesed, Sheba Chesed. Rosh Chodesh Iyar, first day, is always Chesed, Sheba Tiferet. Tiferet is beauty and balance. That's the Venus influence of Taurus in Chodesh Iyar. And the last day of Iyar is Gevura Sheba Malchut, because Rosh Chodesh Sivan is Tiferet Sheba Malchut, right? So we go from Chesed Sheba Tiferet into Gevura Sheba Malchut during the entire month of Iyar. The full moon of Chodesh Iyar is Pesach Sheni, the holiday of second chances, and that's Taurus Scorpio. The full moon of Chodesh Iyar is always full in the month, in the sign opposite, as I told you last month, and will tell you again for the rest of your lives. When the moon is full, it's always full in the sign opposite wherever the sun is. So if the sun is in Taurus, the moon is going to be full in Scorpio. These are the opposites, Taurus and Scorpio, Iyar in Cheshvan, and Venus and Mars. So interesting, another story of the opposites. Iyar is full of Sfirat HaOmer, and Cheshvan is empty of holidays, but it is said during the Geula, the redemption, that Cheshvan will be full of holidays, so we'll see about them. And Taurus is I have, it's about personal possession. Scorpio is we share, shared values, shared valuables, shared resources and intimacies. So both Taurus and Scorpio have to do with possessing or having things or acquiring things. And remember, Scorpio is for the tribe of Menashe, which is from Yosef to Ad, which is about acquiring, acquisition. So those are some of the dynamic interplay of opposites and their shadow type between Chodesh Iyar, which is Taurus, and Cheshvan, which is Scorpio. Some things that happened during Sfirat HaOmer and Iyar. Second temple began on the second day of Rosh Chodesh Iyar. We started building the second temple. Modern state of Israel was born on Yesod Sheba Tiferet, the 5th of Iyar. Malchut Sheba Tiferet, the Israeli War of Independence, that's the 6th of Iyar. The walls of Jerusalem, the rebuilt walls, were dedicated on Chesed Sheba Netzach, the 7th of Iyar. Pesach Sheni, Chesed Sheba Hod. The Israelites run out of matzah and tell Moshe they have nothing to eat on Gevura Sheba Hod. They're like, we're going to tell you like it is. Bottom line, we're hungry. The 16th of Iyar, the manna begins to fall on Tiferet Sheba Hod, the manifestation of beauty falling from the sky. It's unbelievable. Lag BaOmer, the end of the plague among Rabbi Akiva's students, the yahrzeit of Shimon Bar Yochai, the creation of the IDF, which was created on Lag BaOmer in 1948, which is, of course, Hod Sheba Hod, the Sphera. The 20th of Iyar, the Israelites journey from Mount Sinai, the first of their upcoming 42 journeys after receiving the Torah on Malchut Sheba Hod. Then the commandment to keep Shabbat was given on Gevura Sheba Yesod. Each one of these, you could do an hour teaching on just the Sfirat HaOmer implications of these amazing events. And water from the rock after Moses hit it with a stick as he was commanded to on that particular time, Tiferet Sheba Yesod. Amazing. So yes, back to the Jewish year, the cycle of sacred time. This is where we are right here. Issachar, Taurus. This is the part of the year that we're in. We're in the southeast quadrant of the year. We're still developing our self and our identity, our values, and next month, our communication. That's what we're doing. All 12 zodiac signs are in your natal chart, just like we saw. This chart looks like a natal chart because it is a natal chart. It's a natal chart of the 12 signs encamped around the Mishkan. the ecliptic of the earth, the invisible belt that's completely imaginary, that goes around the waist of the earth, so to speak, that's divided into 12 pies or segments of 30 degrees each, equaling 360 degrees. Each of them have a corresponding zodiac sign. So wherever Issachar is, it's one of the rulers of your 12th house, okay? So here's a question that everybody always asks. Why does my horoscope say I'm a Taurus when I was born during Nissan or during Sivan? Because solar Taurus is not the same thing as the month of Iyar. Iyar can vary up to a minute or an hour or 11 days on either side, okay? It just depends on what year you were born, so you really have to know your Hebrew birthday. So if you're born after Rosh Chodesh Iyar but before May 20th, you're an Iyar Taurus. If you're born when the sun is in Taurus, solar Taurus, at the same time as, not Chodesh Sivan, while the sun is in Taurus during Chodesh Sivan is a Sivan Taurus. So I know it's a little confusing, but even if you just look at the last 5 years, you see a big swing between the month of Iyar, which is always going to be associated with Taurus, and sometimes it goes into Gemini, and sometimes it goes into Aries on either side. So over 19 years, it's going to do that a lot, okay? So talking about natal charts, this is the natal chart of the United States using a simple whole sign version of the chart, not a Placidus, just to show how the 12 houses of the zodiac each are assigned to one of the positions in the natal chart of the country of America. Taurus is the ruler of the 6th house of America. The 6th house is about physical health, the mind-body awareness, the mind-body connection, the hierarchical relationships which are formed by service to others. America's 6th house is ruled by Venus in Taurus. That is America the beautiful, the bounty, the beauty, the vastness and majesty of America, the robust health, the natural, the nature, the natural resources of the American archetype, the sturdiness of the American body connected to stability of mind. Of course, the shadow side of that is laziness and overindulgence, greed and love of pleasure and money. This year that we're in right now, 5780, 2020, got a lot going on this month. These are some of the aspects that are happening. What it's really doing is connecting last month to this month. I'm not going to go through all of them because they're complicated, and I don't want to be teaching Astrology 101 during this relatively short period of time that we have together, but you can trust me that the next month is going to be filled with information processing issues. Now, how do we know that? We have lots and lots of things going on with Mercury, the planet of communication, which is moving very fast, squaring Pluto, raw power, Pluto stationing retrograde. The powers that be are going to dig themselves in, dig in their heels, and try to resist the forces that are coming against them, to try to topple them. This is a very, very big power play going on by both sides right now. We have Mercury making a conjunction to Jupiter and the Sun conjuncting Uranus, some kind of crazy ass information. Mercury is always ideas, information, speaking, talking, anything having to do with communication. Square to Jupiter. Jupiter is in Capricorn right now with Pluto and is doing its thing. And the Sun conjunct Uranus could be an extremely abrupt occurrence, and I hope that it has nothing to do with earthquakes, because usually that's what I think it is, and I hope that I'm wrong. And I frequently am, luckily for me and you, okay? But something that's the equivalent to an earthquake, who knows? Anyway, this sort of plots out the rest of the month in terms of the planetary archetypes, what's happening. The big news is, of course, the retrograde of Saturn, and we're going to have a retrograde Venus that's going to last for a while, retrograde in Gemini, that's going to do all sorts of interesting things, okay? So this year, Chodesh Iyar, Taurus's solar month of May, is connecting the conjunctions of Jupiter and Pluto at this sensitive point. So you guys can see this whole wheel here. This is the zodiac wheel, the natural wheel of the zodiac, starting right here. Hopefully you see my cursor going around and around. This is Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius. This is Capricorn, this is Aquarius, and this is Pisces. So right here, I made this little red arrow so you could see this point right here. Now, each of these 12 signs have 30 degrees. So right here between 22 and 24 degrees of Capricorn, which is very close to each other, has been all of these intense conjunctions. This sensitive point has been hit like hell all year long. First, it was the Saturn-Pluto conjunction in December. Then it's going to be 3 successive conjunctions of Pluto and Jupiter. The first one was April 4th. We already saw that. That was the peak of the week of the coronavirus, by the way. It was the 10th of Nissan, the day we take a sacrificial Paschal lamb into the home. We tie it to our bedpost in order to keep it and become familiar with it before we slaughter it later in the story. The second conjunction is going to be June 30th. That will be retrograde, meaning that Jupiter and Pluto are both going to be turning from their forward motion to retrograde motion. It will be the same conjunction at 22 degrees of Capricorn, but it will be, instead of the forward conjunction that we had on April 4th, it will be a backwards conjunction, meaning that it will come back to that. I hope I'm wrong, but I think it's obvious that if some of the restrictions are lifted that we've been suffering under are lifted too fast and people go crazy, there's going to be a resurgence in the virus, and we may be back where we were on April 4th, again on June 30th, if people don't behave themselves and stop acting like idiots. Really, it's completely free will. It's not predestination. Things like that don't have to happen just because of these dates. It could be a retrograde to this period of time back to April 4th if people behave themselves of huge contrast between the two. But I don't trust human nature, and I'm not optimistic, okay? So the last conjunction of Jupiter and Pluto, which is going to happen November 12th of this year, takes place in Cheshvan, Scorpio, in the sign opposite Taurus, which is Scorpio, obviously. It's going to be the 25th and 26th of Chodesh Cheshvan. The moon will be conjunct Venus in Libra, and the northern hemisphere's Taurides meteor showers will appear. So you're going to have that Taurus-Scorpio connection later in the year. So one interesting thing that you should take note of is that America the Beautiful, and this is America's natal chart, is having her first ever Pluto return. Pluto has a 248-year cycle, and no one you know has ever had a 248-year cycle, so nobody you know has ever had a Pluto return. But guess what? Countries or things that live for very long periods of time do, and we're having one. Pluto is the planet of death and rebirth, volcanic eruptions. Our Pluto, our natal Pluto, ours by America, is right down here. If you can look at the screen and see my cursor circling at 27 degrees of Capricorn in America's second house. That's money, material possessions, values, and valuables, and what's called mine. What I say is mine. It's of the USA's natal chart. If I was America and America was talking, I would say, that's mine. My Pluto, my Capricorn Pluto makes me rich. Plutocracy. This is the wealthiest country in the world and always has to be. The great wealth of America is symbolically symbolized right there with that Pluto in Capricorn, and it has been our natural resources and our wealth that has propelled us over the last 248 years. But right now, Pluto is coming back to conjunct itself again. The conjunction of transiting Saturn. Saturn is also making a conjunction. Jupiter and Pluto very close to our natal chart there. can you please mute yourself if you're not muted? Thank you. Is going to be basically a complete death and rebirth. These are some of the dates that are coming up. So Saturn, which is constriction, is going to conjunct America's natal Pluto. Already did this year, 20th through the 20th of February. Then again, July 30th through August 15th in retrograde. And then November 14th through 26th. Those are exact conjunctions, but I'm saying a conjunction is within 3 degrees of an orb. Some people say within 5 degrees, some people say 10. I don't at all. I'm all about the tight conjunctions. These are the exact conjunctions. But you can see the pressure is already there. It's already within 5 degrees. Some are within 3 degrees already. Jupiter is going to conjunct the Plutos of the USA May 3rd through May 26th of this year. And then later, again, this year, December 6th through 10th. And Pluto is going to conjunct itself. Okay, the exact conjunction is February 28th, 2021 through July 29th next year. So February through July of next year. Okay, and then January of 2022 to mid-March 2022. All of these things that are happening to us economically are going to have far-reaching effects, like a ripple on the water, and you can see them happening all the way out into the next few years. And that's with an exact conjunction, okay? And I just want to say, with gratitude to my teachers, I want to give citations to Matisyahu Glazerson, Rabbi Glazerson, who wrote Above the Zodiac, Astrology in a Jewish Light, which is quoted liberally herein. And also much of this art and artwork came from Written in the Stars, Art and Symbolism of the Zodiac by Irish Fishhoff, who's a wonderful writer and a curator, with contributions by Ariel Cohen and Moshe Edel from the Israel Museum, and a wonderful art resource, which is the Bezalel Narkis Index of Jewish Art, which is at the Center for Jewish Art. It's searchable. This is the URL. I will be putting this up later for you all to have and to hold and treasure. And it's a great place to search by subject matter. You can put in the word Taurus and get a million examples of art and architecture and ephemera that they have there at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem at their Center for Jewish Art. And a lot of this, some of it, a little of it was taken from my master's thesis, Yesh Mazal Yisrael. So now it's 12:53. I've talked for a million years. I'm totally exhausted. I'm going to have some water. And if anybody has any questions, I will now take them.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So, you know how astrology is supposedly taboo?
Right.
But
not really, but yeah.
Right. So, I mean, this goes back thousands of years, and that's all that time was.
Right.
So,
how do I explain that?
I mean, the Jewish calendar or the lunar calendar is based on this, and the Roman calendar is not. So, why did that all of a sudden become bad?
It didn't all of a sudden become bad. It's a long story, but I'll tell you the story in the shortest possible way, because I did write 123 pages on this. I definitely am not going to quote myself on any of it. But so as I showed in some of the art, and there's just endless amounts of examples of it, and that's just in things you can touch, like paintings and Torah crowns. That's not to even mention all the textual examples, okay? So there's text and there's artifact. These are two different things. Text is what you can write down, and artifact is something that you have or you can hold, right? So all of those artifacts that we have and the textual evidence that we have, like there's texts of horoscopes in the Dead Sea Scrolls that are personal horoscopes, like horoscopes that rich people had done for themselves. There's also horoscopes in the Cairo Geniza. So there's a million kinds of evidences that astrology was a normative thing, but yet it wasn't like a big thing. It was just like, it was there. It was just like a common cultural reference. Like, you know how we all of us who have lived in North America during like maybe the last 20 years, if we talk about 9/11, we all know what we're talking about, right? Or if we maybe reference The Sopranos, because maybe everybody has seen it or understands when I say Tony Soprano, I'm talking about an Italian mafia gangster. This is not something that is something top of mind awareness constantly, but it's something that we know about because it's part of our cultural reference. So I'm saying that astrology was part of our cultural reference, and we see it in all of these cultural art and artifacts, even in the most holy places, which are synagogues. And on Taurus, Sefer Torah, come on. So it can't be true that you have all this in from communities, and we only say from now in relation to what we think of as quote unquote Orthodox, but before there was such a thing as, there was just Jewish communities, okay? And then there was the Reform movement, and then something called Orthodoxy invented itself as a result of as a response to the Reform movement. And all that just happened like 5 minutes ago in our history, okay? You take our history going back all the way to the beginning. So the fact that all of that was there, and the fact that when you read the Bible, of course, is filled with all sorts of two things. It's filled with two things. One, every single thing about the stars and the planets are praising and praiseworthy. They're wonderful, they're beautiful, they're created by God. We have the Yotzer Or prayer. We have all these prayers and things that are embedded in our liturgy about it. And it's also completely Asur to worship the stars. And of course, imagine what it was like to live before the age of electricity for thousands and thousands of years. As soon as the sun went down, the stars were the only game in town. It was our TV, it was our HBO, it was our Game of Thrones, it was our everything. And people made up stories about the stars, and there was a natural void that they filled, and people made up stories, and those stories became gods, and people started to believe them, and there was a very big move against idolatry. That's the whole thing about monotheism. So you have that exists, but still Jews everywhere, we're monotheists, and we have astrology. So there's a rabbi named Soloveitchik who wrote a book, an essay, Rupture and Reconstruction, Chaim Soloveitchik. In this, he talked about rupture, that the Holocaust ruptured what he called the mnemonic communal norms, meaning what we did in Anatevka in the olden days when we were all there in the shtetl. I couldn't read, and neither could my mother. And how did I know to keep kosher? Because I watched her in my kitchen, and I watched her and my bubby chop up chickens, and how they kept the milk away in another room. And like, I understood all of that by what I mnemonically, like as in mimicked. I mimicked my life around me, and that was part of the communal norms. And that's how people lived, and that's where astrology was part of the communal norm. And then what was written in the text. Some scholar over there in the Shteblach over there is reading the text. It says in the Shulchan Aruch, you should not consult with astrologers, but he isn't connecting that with, he's looking up from his book at the pictures of the astrological signs on the walls. If he was a good Jew and he understood that as being Asur, he would throw something at them or burn it down, right? So he didn't. Why? Because it wasn't understood that way. And the reason we think it is now is because we are so disconnected. That's the rupture and reconstruction. We've reconstructed on the other side of the Holocaust what we think living Jewishly was like. And we look at texts like that and we say, I don't know, do you remember how to keep kosher? I don't know, because my mom is dead and I can't really remember. Let's look at the text. What does it say? Oh my God, you can't put something hot on something cold or cold on hot. I didn't know that. I thought you just moved the thing from here to there. Like, what I'm saying is we're now text brain Jews. All the Jews that have grown since the Holocaust, what do you think they do all day? What is this? They're digging it out. They're digging it out of the text, okay? So that's considered to be our normal understanding, but it's not normal. Soloveitchik says this. It's completely disconnected from are mimetic communal norms in how we used to live. So we don't even know what it's like to live as a Jew. Okay, we only think we do because we read about it in books. And we've made a whole new way of being Jewish called Orthodoxy now. And then all the other ways that we've made up. We're making up ways of being Jewish right now, but because we're reconstructing it. So that's my long, short answer. Okay, I hope I kind of was explaining that it was normal. We have normal proofs that it was normal and everywhere, so you can't take the understanding of it from that one line from the Shulchan Aruch as it being forbidden. And when I lived in Israel, all the years I lived in Israel, I lived in Orthodox, ultra-Orthodox Haredi communities much of the time. And much of my clientele as a Jewish astrologer were from that population, and they're not allowed, they feel like it's a sword, but yet they understand it's part of their heritage. They want to know about it. They want to know about their signs, but they don't want to go to what they think is a fortune teller. So I give over what I know about astrology in a Jewish way, using Jewish symbols and archetypes, and understanding that I'm not trying to tell their future or foretell anything. I'm giving them symbols and archetypes, energetic ideas to work with that are all symbolized by their individual natal charts. Is that a good enough?
That was wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can I ask a question?
Yes, Jonathan.
Thank you for this wonderful presentation. So we're reconstructing, we're reimagining Judaism. Reb Zalman says we have to recover rituals and traditions that were meaningful spiritually. And the Omer has been recovered as a psycho-spiritual journey for Western Jews. We're recovering this psycho-spiritual process of working on ourselves. I think it's great. How does that, is there a handbook from the past, Luria, or Hasidim, or perhaps a hidden woman that wrote a handbook on integrating the Sfirat HaOmer and astrology? If there's something like that exists, I'd like to read it.
I've never seen one, and I wish there was. And if there is, you must alert me immediately. But
I'm commissioning you to write it. And in other words, your 50-day journal, my dear, I give you permission and give you also an utz. I think it would be nice to see an astrological Sfirat HaOmer workbook that we.
Well, I did that every year
ourselves, our inner work, and I think that would be a valuable contribution. If you don't write it, I will probably. So.
Okay. Well, get in line is all I can say, and behind all the other books of yours that you're trying to write.
Okay, but I'd like to see you do that. Really.
Okay, thank you.
And Yeshua Koach for your wonderful talk. It's very rich.
Thank you. For like the last 6 years on Facebook, I've done a Sfirat HaOmer, the astrology way, on a separate group, basically. And there's like several hundred people on it. And I just didn't do it this year. I didn't have the koach because of all the other things, but I've done it, for the last 5 years. So I did that as a group. I tried to do it as a group experience. I tried to get people to interact with it and share their experiences, and made it relevant to the tracking of the Omer. And yes, you're right, I should do a Sfirat HaOmer, the astrology way kind of a book. But it's different every year because there's the major planets. Like the sun is always the same, and the Sfirot are always the same, but the planetary, the other planets are not always the same. But anyway, it's an idea.
I put this chart up in your honor, my dear. So I have a zodiac behind me now.
Nice.
And I have a Shulchan Aruch 10 feet away.
Oh no!
So I'm balancing Shulchan Aruch, Jewish law with astrology. On your honor, my dear.
Thank you. And you should look up that part about don't consult astrologers or cast lots, because that's a hint of Purim. Okay. Does anybody else have any questions?
I kind of do. I have one, Lorelai.
Yeah, Susan. Is that you?
Okay, well, it has to do with this month. You said the divine name is Yud Hey Hey Vav. Is that what you said?
Yeah. I think so.
So, in terms of the reversal, I don't really know anything about the reversals of the letters, the 4 letters. I was wondering if, with the change of the letters in terms of the flow of energy. 4 worlds, if you could explain how these letters interact with the 4 worlds.
Hold Hold on a second. Okay.
I don't even know if the question makes sense.
I understand what you're trying to say. Okay, so the letter Vav, I'm reading this right now from Above the Zodiac, this wonderful book that you can't really buy in America. The energy for, sorry, wait, blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry, I was looking for the part where they are talking about it. It's really long. It's like pages and pages of each of them. I really don't think I can read it all or summarize it because.
Check out, yeah.
I'm sorry, what, Jonathan?
Check out David Zaslow's Siddur, Rabbi Zaslow, Susie. Check it out. It's got the whole thing laid out for you graphically.
Yeah,
okay?
that's a good
Thank
idea.
You, Jonathan.
You need to look at it graphically and understand it because each of those four letters taken discretely and then rearranged with each other, they all produce a separate energy that altogether, if you put them all together, bzz, it's like a giant buzz. Okay.
And does that have to do with, does Ana Bakoach have to do with all that? I should check with,
you should check it out. I'm trying to answer Bob Jaffe's question, okay?
Sure. Hi, Bob.
Bob, can I unmute you so you can ask me your question?
Please.
Okay, I've unmuted you.
Okay, great. Your discussion is really interesting for me, Lorelai, and so are Jonathan's comments on what is reconstructing original Judaism. I think we have to remember that so-called original Judaism, the Revelation at Sinai and Talmud, is a somewhat artificial starting point because it intentionally leaves out actual history and leaves out the multiplicity of different gods from different cultures. It leaves it out. Now, the culture of different goddesses, goddesses, is right below the surface in Torah. If you look for it, it'll be there. And so that's one facet of a so-called original Judaism. The other facet is actual history. And the history sometimes can be so fascinating and so illuminating as to really illuminate what original Judaism was. For example, I've done some research recently into virus and anthrax die-offs in the cattle herds of the ancient Near East. They would have massive die-offs of cattle. So,
like diseases, like cattle diseases that would kill them all, or like plagues of animals?
Plague. The plague that we see in referred to in Dayenu, our Passover, is foot and mouth. Okay. The next one, boils, supposedly refers to anthrax. Okay. So there's archaeological evidence of massive die-offs of cattle.
Wow.
So, yeah, so one can understand how valuable, indispensable cattle were.
Oh, they're in every culture. Every culture. That's why I mentioned that. Were you here for that part where I talked about the other traditions that have a god that's a bull or a cow?
That's where I just came in at. I was 15 minutes late. I apologize, but that's right. So
I mentioned many of them.
Yeah.
And the background there.
What that does is makes it all the more readily to understand how people would worship cattle. Okay. And that's where Mount Sinai comes in. Okay. Is the counter stroke against our idolatry.
That's
and why
true.
So it's just, I think the historical background is really critical. And then
they made a golden calf.
And then they made a
golden calf.
Right. And
how did that happen?
Right. And we've been living it down ever since. Okay. So anyway.
The golden calf, do you get it? Gold because Venus is money and wealth. Golden calf, it's all there. It's all there, people.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Anyway, I want to just thank everybody for coming. I want to give you all a blessing for Chodesh Iyar to be a month of healing for all of us and for the entire world. The ziv, the light, the radiance of this Chodesh should shine down on our sick and sad and sorry little world and give us the healing that we don't deserve, but we completely need. And we need God's grace and we need God's mercy, and we need it now. So can I get an amen from everybody?
Amen.
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 Amen. Amen.
All right.
Amen.
I'm going to stop the live stream.
Thank